Always got the vibe, got the vibe, got the vibe, got the vibe.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to Breakfast of Champions. I appreciate you guys taking the time with me today. Check in on the comment box and let me know where you're tuning in from. Today I got an amazing episode for you guys, and we're going to cover some real basics on the actual fundamental of creating just massive value. And so the name of this event is called the Value Stack. Now, a little bit of history about the Value Stack. I want to share with you the whole concept behind it, and it really helped me sell what was called Streamline, FHA Streamline refinances. So if you guys don't understand what that means, maybe that's a little too new for you guys, or a VA IRRRL. It's basically a transaction where there's little value, little incentive, because sometimes the dollar to dollar difference is pretty minimal. So it's like $25, $30. And so we had to get pretty creative. And if you're a purchase agent, I want to assure you that these techniques can also help you too, because you have to get your prospect to do certain things for you. And I would say that the process of creating a value stack would incentivize your home buyers or your prospects to do certain things for you, like go gather their steps or stick close to you. Basically, it's the idea of taking the initial effect from the transaction, right? And so let's say if it was a like FHA Streamline, or in some cases, some refinances today got very minimal savings, right? So sometimes it'll be like maybe an eighth off the rate or a 1/4% off the rate. Dollar to dollar wise, it's probably saving them maybe like $50 or under $100. And so when you get into this type of I guess offer, you have to get real creative, right? And so one of the videos that I'm going to release today, it's actually up on Facebook right now, but it will be released on YouTube at 5 o'clock today. And it has to do with this one simple fact about selling, and it talks about the perception. And what the perception is basically when we look at an initial workup, right? Maybe you're going through your pricing engine, you're putting together the numbers, and you come out with your final result, right? So after you price it out and everything, and you're looking at the payment to payment difference, and when we see something that is not worth our time, it's likely that we won't necessarily go in on it fully bought in. And I think it's super important for us to be fully bought in, because if we're not bought in, then they're not going to be able to buy in. Does that make sense? So my goal here in this live stream is to teach you how to look at your offers in a completely different way. And by doing so, you're actually going to be able to increase the effectiveness of your delivery. Not only that, but you're going to build urgency, you're going to build excitement, you're going to build this, I would say, connection and bond, whether it's a refinance client or a purchase client. I think that the concepts can be relayed on both sides of the fence. And so let's talk about the value stack. So the value stack is essentially the initial result of the service. And so let's say if we saved somebody $50, right? There's a FHA Streamline and we're saving someone only $50 a month. As an average salesman, we'll look at it and say, oh man, we're only saving this guy $50. He's probably not going to want to buy. He's probably not going to want to get me his documents. And internally, our dialogue is all about judging it. And so we're looking at it in this way, right? And so and we have to admit, right? Self-awareness is step number one. And if you don't have the heart to admit that, then you're never going to be able to grow. You're not going to be able to actually use these techniques. So it's just you, boo-boo. Just you admit it. Like whether or not you're doing it or not, I think it's true. And so when we look at this $50 to $50 savings, we may kind of doubt it. And so we focus on the reasons why they're not going to buy, as opposed to focus on the reasons why they should buy. And so what I did by creating a value stack was basically saying, okay, it's more than just that $50, right? So what else is going to happen for Jim? So Jim's also going to get a payment deferral, an escrow refund, and an FHA Streamline. It's a little bit different because the way it works out, but still, in essence, it's taking them to a lower payment. It's taking them to a lower interest rate. And I think that product's actually coming back today, or as of late, where we now have this window of time to sell FHA Streamlines again. I've closed many FHA Streamlines, and with the help of this value stack, I think you can close many yourself. But also when you come across refinances that have little to no benefit, like $70 savings or $80 savings, I'm going to teach you how to look at it in a different way. For purchase agents, if you're in here in this live stream, you're going to be able to look at this concept to understand the delivery. And so the delivery in bare bones is basically it's mounting up little results of the initial result. Let me explain. So let's say if we had that example for Jim, right? We're saving him like $50 per month. Instead of looking at it like, oh man, Jim's not going to pay $50. First off, we got to take a step back and realize that is our judgment. It's not Jim's, right? So $50 to you and me is completely different. Jim could be on a fixed income. He could be, he could be really in a bad place, and that $50 can really make a huge difference. But sometimes we initially judge, and we'll base our judgment and determine whether or not they're going to buy, and that messes everything up. So try to get past that. But when we get into this offer, don't look at it as just the initial result. You have to actually build up. And so you stack benefits and stack value, right? And so from the $50 savings, then he gets a payment deferral, then he gets an escrow refund, then he gets of course, the deferred payment, and then that escrow refund comes up with the X amount of dollars, right? And so oftentimes we can get creative and say, well, if you took that amount of money, you put it in the bank, you can replenish whatever assets you don't have right now. And if you're asking the right questions during the very first conversation, and you're trying to figure out, how much money they have at the end of each month, if you've nailed down the concept of net income, and if you don't know what net income, visit last week's live stream. Net income is basically how much comes in and how much goes out at the end of each month. And if you can pinpoint how much they have, and you identify that they won't really have anything, most people are living check to check. There's a statistic that says about 8 out of 10 households live check to check. And so we have to identify this, right? And so when you take the initial benefit of, let's say, the payment to payment savings, then it creates kind of this ripple effect. And so it ripples through everything else. So again, from the deferred payment to the escrow refund, to the surge of cash flow, to the available resources to either fill up their bank or pay off other debts. And then that creates its own ripple effect, right? So by paying off those other little debts with that deferral and that escrow refund, you can then improve your FICO score. You can create more monthly savings because you no longer have those debts. And then you can also start replenishing your monthly bank account, because you just told me, Jim, that every single month what comes in goes right back out. Well, I'm creating now some cash flow that can help you replenish whatever assets you burn through. But more importantly, Jim, if you don't necessarily need the $80, which just turned into $250 because I helped you wipe out these debts, go ahead and donate it to your principal balance. Donate it to your retirement. Donate it to your kids. It is completely your choice, but the bottom line is, Jim, that now you have the flexibility to make such a decision. And so, but if I just looked at it as an average loan officer and I said, hey, Jim, I could take your payment from $1,850 to $1,800. This is option number one. It's not going to be kind of as juicy, right? It's not going to be as meaty. And so the funny thing is that it's not just FHA Streamline loans. It's not just IRRRLs. As of late, because of the way the market is adjusting, we now find ourselves doing the same exact thing with refinances. And I'm going to also assist any of the purchase agents that are on here, but in the refinance game, first off, quick side note. If you're a purchase agent and you're ignoring refinance opportunity, I think you're blinded. You're kind of just zeroed in on you're very narrow-minded, because you're missing a big chunk of opportunity that could be right underneath your nose because you're too focused on believing it's just about purchase. I want to invite you to really understand that there will always be this refinance game. There will always be prospects to refinance. Here's the upside, is that if you understand how to do refinances, you understand how to do that part of the craft, you're going to create revenue as you generate your referral partnerships, as you build up and solicit these realtors. You can't just focus on chasing realtors that don't even want to work with you and then forget about your pocket. You got to create some revenue so that you got both streams coming in. So you got refinance revenue coming in and purchase revenue coming in. But I can tell you what, that refinance revenue is going to come in much faster. It's going to come in more frequent. Let the purchase business be actually topping on the cake, or vice versa, depending on which, because I completely get it. Some of you are in different divisions, so you're not allowed to do refinance. That's a limitation, but you have to understand that there is always going to be this refinance game. And so I get comments all the time like, "Hey D, but I'm a purchase agent. Do you have anything for purchase?" Yeah, man, I got a ton of stuff for purchase and refinance. It's taking the concept, right? Just because you hear it laid out in the explanation of a refinance doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't apply to purchase. So get creative, bro, and actually think outside the box and wonder how you can implement it into your purchase game. But anyway, going back to how we can deliver this through, a purchase, like you simply, what I found is that with dealing with a purchase prospect or dealing with a refinance prospect, the whole goal is to take that prospect through a cycle, right? So we take them through application, we take them through credit report, credit scrub, pricing, pitch, right? Elevation, processing, underwriting, and then funds. So there's all these different milestones. And one thing that I've discovered is that we naturally are kind of designed this way to go through these milestones. And so, think of like elementary school, right? So when you go through grade 1, 2, 3, 4, you have to go through these grades to ultimately graduate. Same thing with like college. If any of you guys went to college, you have to go through these certain amount of years just to get the big goal, which was a degree or, a diploma, whatever it was. Even from where you're at right now, you probably had to go through, maybe a junior loan officer to a loan officer to a senior loan officer, and so on, right? So we're naturally built this way to kind of move up the ranks or move through these sequence of milestones and different pieces of the process. And here's the thing, though, is because we're so built this way, we kind of communicate that way. And so we don't talk about, things that actually happen towards the end. We're more focused on things that are happening right then and there. But here's the trick, is that when you want to entice someone to do something for you, like act with urgency, or buy into your message, or send you the steps for their pre-approval, or send you the steps for the refinance with urgency, we have to talk about what actually the big goal is. Does that make sense? So if you think about it, the reason why you go through let's say school is because you have to get that diploma. You have to get that end result, right? That's what drives you. People are in college spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in college tuition just to get the degree because their eyes are set on that end prize. Well, we take that same exact concept and we actually create a value stack. So the value stack is basically that grand prize. It's the degree. And so what we do is we kind of entice them, but we build up and talk about the end result. And so how do you create, how do you make them want the end result? Because truth of the matter is that if I'm showing Jim $50 in savings, what's going to make him want to move, right? What's going to make him create urgency? Or if I'm talking to a pre-approval and all they want to know is how much, what an estimate is, and I don't even have their documents yet, what can I do to make this person give me their documentation? What you can do is actually talk about the end goal and end result and assure them that you're on the same page. Does that make sense? And sometimes we don't look that far because we're just kind of caught up in the very beginning. We're kind of caught up with just the numbers, and then we make this judgment and we discredit that entire message. And because we discredit and we think $50 isn't a lot, we communicate it that it's not a lot, and then we wonder why Jim wants to think about it. And so I guess where I'm getting at is before your next pitch, before your next approach, whether it's a purchase or a refinance prospect, you have to understand exactly what it is they want, what their end goal is, right? And so if they're calling you and they say they want a lower rate, what they mean is they want a lower payment. If someone's calling you and said, hey, I just want to get an estimate on what a house would be if I were to buy one, what they're trying to find out is whether or not they can afford it. But more importantly, when they tell you that they don't want to give you any time until you give them an estimate, what they're trying to do is tell you, I don't want to waste my time. And so if we can just simply adapt to that message, adapt to that kind of the communication, right? So if this person is telling me these certain words, like before I begin, can you do 2.5 30-year fix? We have to understand that this person he's just trying to save time, right? He's just trying to make sure that because his visual or his understanding of how mortgage loans work is that 2.5 just means it's going to have a lower payment, right? And so he might have an FHA 3.75%, and he thinks that, oh yeah, I got a 3.75. The only way you could help me is if you get lower than 3.75. So they'll make these requests that just seem outlandish. But the funny thing is that when they make those requests, we act as if they know what they're talking about. And some of us take it to heart. And some of us will kind of accept it as a challenge, like, that's not available. Let me go ahead and educate you about the market. It's not time to educate them about the market, boo-boo. You got to agree with that man. You got to agree with that lady and say, yeah, let me go ahead and help you. Watch, check this out. And bring them into your world. Because until you bring them into your world, and actually until you identify what actually moves them, what emotional ties they have to the end result, you can't build that excitement. And so I guess what I'm trying to get at is the value stack is all about really building up on that end goal, is to build up on that end result, not look at it from just kind of the shell and say, okay, well, I can only save Jim $50. Let me go ahead and hurry up and pitch this guy real quick because he's not gonna want it. Yeah, you guys gotta be feeling this. Come on, comment in the comment box wherever you guys are checking in from. It makes sense, and I know it resonates, right? Because you've caught yourself in that moment. Whether you're a purchase agent or a refinance agent, you've caught yourself kind of looking at this offer and overthinking it and saying, oh man, I'm only saving him $20, or oh man, I'm only lowering his rate an eighth, or oh man, he asked for a 3.5. I can only give him 5.5. And we actually catch up. We get caught up in our own selves. We get caught up in our own thoughts. And so my goal here is just to really open your eyes to looking at it in a different way, because until you look at your delivery in a different way, you're not going to enable them to look at it any different either. And so if you can only just see as far as the dollar to dollar savings, like $50 in savings, then what do you think Jim's going to look at? He can only see that far too, because that's the way you relayed your message. Is that making sense? And so if you can look past that and actually create a value stack, and I'm gonna show you an example in just a second on how to do it kind of like on a refinance. And even if you're doing a purchase, if you can just understand that it's more than just the process of being pre-qualified, isn't it? It's more than just asking and figuring out how much they can truly afford. We need to look at what it is they want, and what they really want is home ownership. What they really want is to stop renting. What they really want is that sense of ownership and pride that comes with being a homeowner. Or what they really want, if you ask the right questions, is to put their family in a better place, in a better spot, where they're not living on the third floor and they got neighbors connected to the left, right, bottom, and top of them. Does that make sense? They want a different environment. And this is what we need to focus on. But sometimes we just focus on like, oh man, I'm going to ask this guy for 3 years worth of income documents. He's never going to want to do it. So you got to look past that, because that's your belief. And so if you can get creative and you get caught up in a situation like this that I'm going to bring up now on the screen, where we can create a value stack. And so here it is in action. And basically what a value stack is, and I'm going to give you a pretty good example. And I put these slides together really quick, so I hope you guys follow along and it makes sense. But again, we got Jim, right? So Jim would like to refinance out of an FHA into a conventional to remove mortgage insurance. If you guys are focused on efficiency when trying to originate deals, you're going to know that there are some deals that you probably shouldn't really spend your time on, right? And there are some deals that you should. So a deal, even if you're a purchase agent, this applies to you, boo-boo. You got to understand the role that this plays, because while you're waiting for that that realtor to call you back with them deals that he's promised you, you can go ahead and start creating revenue right now. So take a look at your past clients. Maybe these are people that you helped buy a house, maybe 6 months ago, 12 months ago. You can either streamline them or you can refinance them now. And so let's say you helped Jim a year ago buy his house. Well, guess what? Jim's got an FHA loan, right? And I bet you he wants to get out of it because it has the mortgage insurance. So let's look at Jim's situation. Jim's sitting right now, let's just say 3.625. And because of the way Jim financed his loan, he's got 0.85 in MI. Does that make sense? So his total payment with impounds, let's just say Jim pays $13.04 per month. Well, if I looked at it in today's market and said, okay, if I give Jim, let's say a lender paid mortgage insurance for $205,000, the rate's going to be like 5.25. But even if I combine his rate, he's got 4.475. See, a lot of us get caught up right here. We get stuck right here and be like, oh man, he's not going to buy it. It's a higher rate. But you got to dig deeper. So when you break it down, you figure out that the new payment, when you take it at 5.25%, his total payment's at $13.82. You get caught up and you think, but wait, he's paying $13.04 right now. He's never going to buy it. Like, we completely forget the fact that he's not going to have mortgage insurance, but more importantly, we completely forget to ask and actually dig in. So for example, what if we found out that Jim actually has $1,162 in his escrow balance right now? And what if we creatively ask Jim how much he's sending on credit cards that we know he's got because we got his credit report in front of us, right? And so if we find out that he's actually paying one credit card for $1,700, $150, we're being more creative rather than just using the minimal payment that shows on the credit report. Because if I use the minimal payment on the credit report, it's going to say like $20 or $25. But I'm asking Jim because I'm creating that bond. I'm actually trying to deliver value. I'm being proactive in creating a value stack. Does that make sense? So I find out that Jim's paying $150 of that because they're trying to pay it off and they're trying to get themselves debt free. You know what I mean? Like the next credit card, like $1,200. How much are you sending on that, Jim? I sent $150 on there because we're trying to pay it off. Awesome. You got a Kohl's account for $8.99. How much do you pay on that? Oh, I think my wife sends $100. Got it. And then you got this small Barclays account for $805. How much do you send on it, Jim? Oh, I send about $100. Well, if I consider the fact that I'm going to help Jim not only defer a mortgage payment of $1,304, and then also create a escrow refund of $1,162, I'm giving him a surge of cash flow, aren't I? So with that surge of cash flow, that's why I'm asking him about those debts, because I'm looking farther past the initial payment difference of $1,304 versus $1,382. So where most would actually just inactivate this lead and move on, I'm juicing it for all it's got. I'm thinking outside the box and I'm saying, okay, well, I know it's more than this because I have his credit report. And so I'm going to dig in this credit report. I'm going to reference his escrow balance and I'm going to add the two together. And so now what it looks like is, okay, so here we go. If I were to give you $205,000 at 5.25%, and I'm not pitching it by the way, it doesn't come out that way. It doesn't say, hey, your new payment at 5.25%. I'm actually selling him payment to payment, but I just want to illustrate to you real quick the difference. And so even at 5.25% lender paid mortgage insurance, if I took his payment from the total of $1,804 today to 5.25 at $1,382, well, that's $422 in savings, right? You see, we wouldn't be able to find that if we didn't think of the big picture of the ultimate value. So yeah, you're right. He's definitely not going to move if you're going to increase his payment. But if you dig a little bit deeper and find out all these other valuable assets that he's going to experience, like the escrow balance refund, the credit card debt consolidation, the improvement of FICO, then we have a value stack. But see, a lot of us just get caught up here. And we just look at his current state and it says, oh, but he's got 1304 total monthly payment. How am I going to sell him at 1304 when my payment at 5.25 is 1382, and then move on or not be as enthusiastic? Right? So we got to really got to get creative and figure out and dig deep for benefits, because when you really dig deep and break it down, you would have missed that you could ultimately save Jim $422 in monthly savings. So here's what the value stack looks like, and I'll end the stream. Is basically you're kind of just listing out benefits, right? And so again, from the payment deferral and the escrow refund, I was able to free him up about $2,962. And for those of you who already know, you could take a loan, a conventional, all the way up to $19.99, cash to him without calling it cash out, and still get away with rate and term pricing. So if I did that, I'm actually going to add another $1,999 and put close to $5,000 in his pocket. By doing such, it's actually going to help him remove the credit card debts, which in turn will improve his monthly cash flow. On top of that, it's going to improve his FICO score. On top of that, it's going to give him more of an additional tax write-off, is it not? And then also improve the quality of life, because he's not having to dish out an extra $400 in credit card debt. Now, because I understand that Jim is living check to check, wouldn't that give him less worry and anxiety knowing that he has $400? Isn't that similar to giving him like a $750 gross monthly income increase? And with that less anxiety and less stress, wouldn't he enjoy life more? But more importantly, have more security, knowing that he can actually create reserves and build assets in the interim while his property builds value. And so as he's building equity in the interim, he has this extra additional flexibility and cash flow of $400. You see, what I done is I took someone who I could have simply viewed at as I'm just increasing their interest rate, or I'm just raising their payment, and I'm actually building enough asset to make this person a client for life. And so I want you to really pay attention to that. I want you to understand that it goes deeper than just the initial kind of transaction, right? So you have to understand how your service actually helps them. And so let's say, again, because I'm sure there's some purchase agents on here talking about, yo, but D, what about me, bro? What you have to do is really focus on the emotional ties. And so in your conversation, if you're asking the right questions and you find out that, it's a new family, and you find out that they want to buy a house because they got 3 kids that are going to go to school soon. These are things you need to pick up on, because those are the things that apply to them. Whereas a lot of times when we are doing kind of pre-qualifications, we keep it so boring and bland, and it's all about this, and it's all about my company, and it's all about our process. It's got to be about them. And if you can figure out how to manufacture your message to make it a little bit more about them, they're going to be tied to you. Because the problem is when you send them out a pre-approval or pre-qualification, what's going to make them stick to you? What's going to make them remember you? What makes them remember you is the way that you communicate to them. So when you check in every week, or you check in every other week, you're sending them messages that are applicable to them. And what's your upside? Your upside is you didn't spend an hour with Jim getting him pre-approved and him just to forget about you the following week because he got advertised by every mortgage company pulling trigger leads, and now they're calling him to offer him that new shiny thing. And so if you want to protect your time, you have to be more focused on their perception. And again, today at 5 p.m., I've got a video releasing on YouTube, so be sure you stick around. If you haven't signed up for a copy of my sales script, you probably didn't get the notice, but definitely go to salesremastered.com after this live stream, sign up for the sales script, because it's going to help you break down the first barrier, and that's actually compliance in your initial conversation, your initial application. And I really hope you guys enjoyed this live stream. I hope you guys are taking away some value that can help you increase your sales. I'm looking forward to reading through the comments, and I'm looking forward to engaging with you guys on the next live stream. And a quick update, the studio is changing. I'm taking it out from my home office. I'm actually redoing my garage right now into making it a studio. So the background is going to be a little bit more ambiotic, and it's going to give you, a little bit more value, because, the whole way I'm setting it up, I'm going to be able to be a little bit more engaged. I'm going to be able to move around a little bit more. With all reason to serve more value, to give the community and give you for spending time and helping support the brand at Sales Remastered, giving you the resource that you need to to push past a lot of the barriers and kind of these little mental roadblocks that we create for ourselves, and open our eyes and look at it for what it is. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to help Jim. It's an opportunity to add Jim to our book of business, and so I can help Jim over and over and over and over again. You see, we forget that because we just initially look, we can't see past the first offer, the first result from our pricing engine. And if you don't find that, if you don't get creative enough to really hone in on creating a value stack, you're going to miss a lot of opportunity. You're going to actually make the sale a little bit more difficult. And what's going to happen is you're just going to collect a bunch of no's. You're going to collect a bunch of rejections. And then what happens after that is you're going to think it's you. And you're going to think that it's just it's because of the market, or it's because of these leads, or it's because of my company, or it's because of my manager. And then you start looking awkward and you're like, oh man, it's this, that, and this. And when in all reality, it's just actually us. We just got to take some time to really kind of get creative and really think of how can I create more value, right? How can I take this one piece of service or result and actually create kind of a ripple effect throughout Jim's life? I know this transaction, it may only save him $50, but what does the big picture mean for Jim? Better FICO, more cash flow, more money in the bank, right? Less spending in credit card debt. You got to look at how it actually ripples through your prospect's life. And I think you'll find more than just the $50 to $50 savings. So again, I hope that you guys enjoyed this live stream. I appreciate you guys for taking the time and spending with me. Stay tuned for the content that's ahead on the channel. If you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube, click the subscription link. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. If you hit the bell next to the subscription link, you will be notified of the content that I'm uploading. And as I'm releasing more and more content, I thank you in advance for leaving your comments, leaving your feedback. You know, I'm not able to grow this channel and deliver as much value without hearing from you. So when I see your comments, I read them and I reply back myself. And so I appreciate you because you've helped me grow this brand to what it is today. Again, I wish you guys a great morning, and I'll see you guys on the next live stream.